Okay, we are back. We're going to take a look at basic usability on a single field in this video. So we're going to launch our software, and since we've already launched it before, when you hit the next button, it's going to give you a review of what your settings were last time. So I'm just going to leave the settings as they are and hit finish, and it'll start up the application. So a quick tour of the main window. Over here you have the just basically an overview of your global settings and then your version number. Directly below that are the fields that we have added. You can click on one to select that field while no field is running. You have your add and remove fields buttons. You can only remove fields that aren't the one that's here on this server. If this was server only, then this field wouldn't be here, and you would just add field 1 through whatever yourself, and then you could remove and edit those. Below that is the controller button. If you go to usbbutton.com and buy one of those and plug it into the machine, it'll find it here, and you can use that to control the system. You have a mute button to locally mute the sound coming out of this computer and only this computer, so this is just here. It's not remotely if you use remote sounds. And below that is your local timer display control, so we will look at that in just a minute. On the right hand side, on the top, you have communication status. If this is a remote system, it'll say it here, and you'll be able to see the status of receiving packets from the server. You can see that it's receiving right now from local, and it's currently actually actively receiving data from itself. This time shows updates every time it receives data, and then the green light here will actually indicate that it's receiving data. Below that is the actual settings for the field you have selected. So if we go to field 1, you see it says field 1 up there. Now the match type is global across all the fields, so we can pick whatever kind of match we want, like practice, qualification, semifinal, and final. I do have quarterfinals in here, but FTC doesn't currently use them, but it exists. Under that is what period that field is on, whether it's running or not, and then the match number it's using, and then the current timer value. This bar here will make a progression across through all the different periods, and then you have your match controls. The button that I'm expecting you to press next is flashing. You can see the start match button is flashing. The advance to next match will move on to the next match and will also increment to the next field for the variable number of fields you have available. Reset match stays on the current field and just resets it, doesn't increment the match number. Start timeout, we'll go over that here shortly. That will start a timeout on that field for that display. Cancel cancels that timeout. And then during a match you can pause it and then stop it. You can't stop it before you pause it. I require you to pause it first to make sure you don't accidentally stop a match. And then you have an application settings button at the bottom, and we'll go over that in just a second. The GitHub link is here, so you can get to the GitHub really fast so you can submit bug reports. And of course this is Creative Commons licensed with attribution. So now let's take a quick peek at the application settings. Inside of the Generals tab, you have sound location. Now this is where the server will tell the system to play the sounds. From the server, when you mark locally, it will play the sound out of this computer for all fields. Remotely, we'll tell it to play the sounds at each individual timer, wherever that timer is located. If it's selected remotely and then this is the timer that should play the sound, this computer will still play the sound. Eventually I will add another selection here which will say both, so it will play out of the server and the remote timer, whatever timer is currently selected. That's an option people have asked for, so I'm going to add that. Under application options, this check mark just turns off the hover help that I have throughout this application to help you learn your way around. This is future expansion for the PIT display. And then you have server and local control options for various things throughout the application. I'll show you later that during eliminations, I call a timeout on the field that we just left during eliminations that is 5 minutes long, because teams are required to have a 5-minute delay before they're required to play again. So you can turn that off if you don't want it. This option is here really for testing purposes. It prevents you from changing your selected field when you have another field already running. So it keeps you from navigating to the wrong field. I'll explain this more later when I get the display up, but I have two different options of displaying on the timer display whether that timer is currently the selected one by the server. I have a large version and a small version. We'll look at both of those. And then if you do not want to display the field number on the display, you can uncheck that box. Under match timing, you can customize the match timers. It defaults to the FTC default, but if you in the actual competition times, but if you want to change it for some reason, like an off-season event, you can do that. Default timeout options. It uses this timeout number for the cooldowns between elimination matches, but you can always change it on other things, but that's the only one that's automatic. And then this allows the system to speech countdown at the end of matches. If you check that, you can tell it when to start counting down. And then match eliminations helps me calculate the number of actual matches I need. So there are four teams in the semifinals, 4 alliances, so it knows how many to make, and there would be 8 in a quarterfinal if we had one. The application allows you to put your own logo on the display. This I'll point out the logo when we look at the displays, but you can pick your own logo and put it in here if you want to do that on your clocks. And then the time and date can be shown. Originally it was by default, but I changed our Virginia First logo, so I unmade that default. Sound testing just lets you, these are all the sounds loaded by the application, so you can click one of these and play it. If you turn on play loop forever, then it will just play this over and over again. That lets you test your sound system and adjust your volumes. And then the USB button settings, if you have one plugged in, you can set it up here. So that is the initial setup of the process, and in the next video we will demonstrate starting a field. I'll get a timer running on a second display, and you'll be able to see how that works.